श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः नमामि गौडपादं च शङ्करं श्रीसुरेश्वरं स्वामिनं सच्चिदानन्दमिन्द्रं तं ज्ञानरूपिणे ओम नारायण. Okay. Yeah. Now, next point he proceeds. Now, a point was adhyasa requires a simple prasiddhi. Prasiddhi means it requires to be evident, that's all. Being evident is what is required, not necessarily to be sense perceived. Okay, perceptible to senses, that is not the necessary. That means it is not necessary that Atma should be perceptible to sense in order for it to be mistaken. Or in other words, what is sense perceived, what is available to sense organs, that alone is a matter of adhyasa. You can't make a rule. See, adhyasa need not be only with regards to an object that is perceived by sense organs. What is not perceived by sense organs also can be mistaken. This is the point he wants to say now. 22nd point in Sugama, 22nd. So, adhishtanasya purovasthitatvamupi na niyamena apekshate adhyase. Atha yaduktam purovasthitah eva sarvo adhyasyati. Purvapakshi told that everybody mistakes, or anybody mistakes something which is purovasthitam. Purovasthitam means right in front of you. Right in front means through sense organs. Right in front means known through sense organs. So this detailed discussion of adhyasa underlies one thing, that the mistake is not at the level of sense organs, not at the level of mind. It is much deeper. The very individuality is adhyasa. Generally, we think adhyasa is an event, is an experience of jiva. Okay. Adhyasa is one of the many experiences of jiva. I repeat, adhyasa is an experience about the world, experience of jiva about the world. No. The very entire world is adhyasa. There is no adhyasa about the world. Okay? The misunderstanding is not about the world. World itself is a misunderstanding about Brahman. Okay, this is the point. Then, aham buddhi or jiva buddhi, regarding jiva buddhi, let us say, it is not that jiva has adhyasa. The very jivatvam is an adhyasa about Brahman. The very jivatvam is a misunderstanding about your real nature as Brahman. My real nature is Brahman. When that real nature is misunderstood, I find myself to be jiva. It is not that a jiva has a misunderstanding. The very jivatvam is a misunderstanding about Brahman. See, this subtle difference. So because the problem is much deeper, it has to be seen at the right point. So the very jivatvam is a misunderstanding about your real nature, which is Brahman. Therefore, atha yaduktam purovasthite eva sarvo adhyasyati. That Purvapakshi was insisting already he is taking an adhyastha condition. Okay. He is taking a condition within the world that an individual has an experience about the world. So he is taking misunderstandings or one of the many experiences of Jiva. This is how most of the people also misunderstand Vedanta. We have got many experiences about the world. Some of them are right, some of them are misunderstandings. Like we see book and table, wall, all these tree and car and the road and human beings, many things we see. The food, clothes, all that which we use, they are not misunderstanding. Only a few events take place in our life, like rope is mistaken for snake, rope is mistaken for snake, or you see the blue sky, or you see the horizon, or you see tree from a distance looks different, the mountain looks from a distance looks different, like a few misunderstandings we have. So this adhyasa of samsara is not such a misunderstanding, is not such an experience which is one of the many experiences of Jiva. Therefore, Purvapakshi always talks of those experiences. Jiva has many experiences. Out of them, some are true knowledges, some of them are misunderstandings, wrong knowledges. And he says, Adhyasa is beyond knowledge, Atma is beyond Adhyasa. Therefore, no Adhyasa can be seen in our life. So, all the experiences of our life are true knowledges. Purvapakshi's idea is all the experiences, even the experience of myself as an individual, as a Jiva, is not a misunderstanding. That I am a Jiva is a fact. That I, the sense of I itself is a fact. Siddhanti has to say, the very sense of individuality itself is a misunderstanding. So, this is the difference between, so the Purvapakshi takes an ordinary man's stand and Siddhanti is pointing out a deeper fact of life. Okay, so this is the difference. So, when we compare and contrast, we compare and contrast with other schools of philosophy, not to see the defect in others. The purpose is not to see somehow others are wrong and we are right. See, the purpose of Vedantins is not to prove others are wrong and Vedantin we alone are right. Shankaracharya takes up other schools of philosophy, compares and contrasts, and shows most of these schools are in contrast with Vedanta. So the purpose of this contrasting is to show the subtle difference. When you contrast, then only you see the very, very subtle difference. Otherwise, if you see one object alone, you wouldn't be able to decide whether it is big or small. You can't decide it. Take up another one and compare with it. Oh, then you see it is a small. From a distance, all are look similar. All are look similar. But when you take them and compare and put them together, oh, you see there is a small difference. Small means a very thin millimeter difference, or 2-3 millimeters. So when you compare, the contrast, then you see the subtle difference. So other schools of philosophies are brought to compare so that Vedanta's special point is understood in contrast with others. And Shankara is contrasting all other schools with Vedanta. Vedanta is not a person's school. It's not founded by Kapila or Buddha or Mahavira or somebody. Therefore, we always say Veda is Apaurusheya. By Apaurusheya, we mean it is just a statement of a fact. That's what it means. So, Mimamsakas explain the Apaurusheyatvam of Veda in a different terms which common man can appreciate. But if you are a deep thinker, the simple and straight way of Apaurushaya of Veda means Veda is not a statement of a person. It is not a statement made by any person, nor it is a statement from an individual standpoint. See, Veda is Apaurushaya because it is not a statement made by an individual, nor it is a statement made from the standpoint of individuality. See, from the standpoint of Jiva. 2 points you have to note it. The statement stands on its own, whether you speak or I speak. The validity of the statement doesn't rest upon the speaker. This is what Apaurushaya means. The validity of a statement. Validity of a statement doesn't rest upon the speaker, but it is in spite of the speaker. In spite of the speaker, the sentence itself is valid. Who speaks is immaterial. Like when I say this is a pen. This statement is true not because I said it. Who said it is immaterial. The statement itself is true and valid because it is talking a true fact. That's all. So this is an Apaurushaya. So Upanishad talks about a truth. It just points out. You only have to put yourself in a right frame of mind to be able to understand what Shruti is pointing out. Vedanta is pointing out, is drawing your attention to certain fact. So the fact is already existing. Only you have to change your vision, change your standpoint, the right way of looking. You only have to develop the right way of looking, the right frame of mind. That's all. Think by itself need not be acquired, achieved, or produced. Truth nobody need to manufacture. Nobody need to acquire it, because the truth by its very nature is self-existent. See, what is truth? What is self-existent alone can be truth. What doesn't need a proof is the truth. You ask me what is truth? What is the proof of the truth? If you need to prove it, it is no more a truth. Okay. What needs a proof is not the truth. Truth is something which is self-established. Okay. It is self-established. You may be unable to see it. We may be unable to see it. Then we have to develop the ability to discern it, ability to understand it. Okay. So there may be defect in my mind. There may be defect in my way of looking, the standpoint of looking. So there we have to correct the personality, where we have to correct the mind which is impure and prejudiced and disturbed. Second is, the mind has to take the right standpoint. What is the right standpoint? Not having any standpoint is the right standpoint. Because drop away all the standpoints, the truth is self-existent, self-evident. Self-evident is not a standpoint. Okay. All others are standpoints. When all other standpoints are just removed, what remains naturally revealing, what remains naturally visible is truth. So Shruti is only just pointing out. It doesn't do anything. Therefore, Apaurushaya means a statement of a fact. Generally, we go by an impression that any statement comes from a person. People are unable to understand Apaurushaya. Even Buddha could not understand Apaurushaya. What to talk of ordinary people? Even Buddha could not understand what is Apaurushaya. So Apaurushaya means we think generally any statement has to be made by a person. a person should make a statement and also from a given standpoint. Any statement is by a person from a standpoint. So if we say there is a statement not made by a person and not from a given standpoint, then people say, oh, such a thing doesn't exist, we don't accept. See, this is the beauty of the Veda. Veda is not anybody's standpoint. It is just a self-existing universal fact. Anybody can see for himself or herself if you are prepared to see. Only thing you need is you have to prepare. You have to prepare your mind to be able to see where the Shruti is pointing out. It just draws your attention and points out. Pointing out means what? It gives a way of looking, how to look at it, the way of looking, and take the stand and just shift your vision, and you see the thing is already there, you are already Brahman. Therefore, here Apaurusheya is not a statement by a given person. Therefore, any other school represents somebody's standpoint, somebody's experience, and a given standpoint. This is how the Shankaracharya and the tradition looks at Veda. Veda is not a given person's stand. People say our rishis are only medium, okay? Rishis are not the makers of Veda. This has been our stand of Hinduism. Because we are too much influenced by other religions, which have their own founders. Buddhism depends upon Buddha's statement. Jainism depends upon Jaina's statements. Christianity on Christ's statement. Islam from Muhammad's statement. Each religion depends upon a given person's statement. Sometimes they go by somebody's experience. Like Ramakrishna Math goes by the Ramana, what is his name? Ramakrishna's experience. They always quote. See, Vedanta doesn't depend upon any person, whether Ramakrishna or Vivekananda or even Shankara or Vedavyasa. Okay. Veda is not an experience of a given person. If it is an experience of given person, again that becomes a subjective and individualistic. Okay. Vedanta talks of a universal fact. It doesn't talk of a given person's personal experiences of having a vision of Jesus or a vision of Muhammad. Because personal experiences could be delusional. Personal experiences could be delusional. Two mistakes are possible. One is personal experiences could be delusional. Second, even if they are not delusional, even if they are true, they being personal, they express only one standpoint, not a universal truth. Okay. But unfortunately, Ramakrishna Mission depends on a one person. It is a very strange thing. They claim universality but depend upon a given person. Isn't it a contradiction? Doesn't your universality gets dismissed? Your universality has no meaning when you depend upon one person. They always talk of Anubhava. Without Anubhava, nothing is proven. If once you have Anubhava, then that is proven. Then I ask, do you have the Anubhava? No, my Guru had the Anubhava. My founder of my organization has an. That again is a paroksha. It is a third person's experience, not your experience. That means it is a given person's experience. Once you depend upon a given person's experience, again it becomes a blind belief alone. It is no way different from Islam and Christianity. Isn't it? I say I had some darshan. Only thing they claim is, see, there is a very peculiar illusion of Ramakrishna Math. They claim is that if somebody says, I had an experience and others cannot have, If somebody claims I have an experience and at the same time says that no other person can have this experience, they all have to accept this based upon my personal experience. If you say this, it is wrong. They say openly. Vivekananda says, while criticizing Islam and Christianity, if somebody says this is my personal experience and at the same time says that others cannot have this experience, and Vivekananda says this is his personal one, cannot be accepted as a truth. A truth has to be universal. Okay. Now regarding Ramakrishna's experience, if he had a personal experience, they only differ from this argument. Just now I told the argument, they differ from the argument. What does the argument just now they told? If somebody claims he has an experience, at the same time claims others cannot have, they must believe my experience alone. This is wrong, they say. Abba, very good point. We appreciate it. We feel very happy with Vivekananda's this statement. When he told that if somebody claims to have an experience and rejects the possibility of others' experience, we can't accept it. Vivekananda is right. We also accept it and it's reasonable. But Ramakrishna Math himself claims that which, so what Ramakrishna has got, everybody can have, but nobody has. See, this is another way, another what you say, a delusory argument. What Ramakrishna, now whatever Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had those experiences, do others have? How many sannyasis, how many followers of Ramakrishna in the world have similar experiences of Ramakrishna? None of them have. That means they also just, though orally, verbally they express different arguments, but practically it comes to be similar to Christianity. See, the argument wise, they dismiss Christians' argument. They dismiss Islamic argument. So, that argument wise, you can't argue against Ramakrishna Math because they escape that criticism. But practically it means the same. Only they escape the criticism, but practically they are same. See the difference? I think I told you that twice. Just now I told you that twice I told the argument. I repeat once again. That if you have a personal experience like Jesus or somebody, and if they say that you cannot have the experience of God, you have to take me from me, you have to take the knowledge of God only from me, belief of God from me. I have received the revelations, others cannot receive the revelation. Jesus is the only Son of God and others cannot be the only Son of God. Others can't be sons of God. I am the only one. I am the only one spent specially by God. Okay. Now this is an exclusiveness. But Ramakrishna Math says that no, we don't believe that exclusive of somebody's experience. What Vivekananda says very beautifully, this good point, anything, any fact must be universally experienced. It can't be, you can't claim a personal experience to be universal. So what Ramakrishna Math says, argument wise is good, but in practical life they mean the same thing. They say everybody can have experience, but only Ramakrishna had experience. Everybody can have, but nobody has. Therefore, we have to accept on his experience alone. Okay. Ultimately, what you reject, the same thing you follow. What you criticize, the same criticism applies to you. You follow the same thing. Because no other people have such experiences. So, here again you depend upon persons. We say it is a universal statement, talks about universal experience. That means it is only pointing out. It is helping you to shift your vision and see it for yourself, discover it for yourself. Therefore, here we say adhyasa is not an individual. You can see them how they dismiss books and Upanishads and then Shankara Bhashya and all. One side they praise, other side they dismiss. They say all this book reading is waste. Nobody has realized by book reading. Only by realization you realize. This is what they talk of. So Ramakrishna Math is a bundle of contradictions. They deny and they talk of the same thing. What they reject, they accept the same thing. What they reject in others, they follow the same thing in them. So it's a very strange thing. Anyway, we leave them. Not to criticize them personally, but just for sake of topic, I took them as examples. I don't mean to criticize them or have any ill will against them. So here, Apaurusheya means a universal fact. So nobody can write a sentence about a personal universal fact. What is a universal fact? There is a universal statement about the universal facts. Sentence you don't compose personally, the sentence itself exists, pointing out a universal fact. Because when the fact is already existing, its knowledge also must exist along with the fact. See, this is the Mimamsakas argument, Vedic people's argument. When the fact is universal, the statement which reveals it also must be universal. Otherwise, fact was existing and its teaching came later after 4,000 years. Okay. There was an original sin 4000 BC, and after 4000 BC, Jesus came to remove your sin. Okay. Then what about those people who lived 4,000 of years? According to them, Srishti was 4,000 years before Jesus. Okay, assuming that we are talking. Then if they had sinned and they died without any savior, how will they be saved? They have no answer. They only say you have to believe God's word. That's all. Don't expect it to be logical. Even if it is illogical, you have to accept what the Bible says. That's all. That means once you are recommended, once you are encouraged to accept illogical thing, then whole thing becomes a perversion. It is harmful to society. That's why lot of torture, exploitation, Columbus, Vasco da Gama, and all the missionaries, wherever they went, the same thing. The Pope and the church and everybody did the same mischief. Because once you start accepting blindly, this is what is going to happen. Therefore, Upanishadic statement is not a statement from somebody. It is not statement of a person. It is just a statement of what? Statement of very God. Statement of God about the truth. That means it is the statement about the truth and by the truth. Then we have to say, Veda Apaurusheya means it is a statement revealing the truth. The statement comes from the truth. When does the truth come? Truth doesn't come, truth exists. Then statement exists. See how Vedic people say. See, first you can't say first truth existed and its teaching or statement came after a long time. That means during this period, who knows the truth? How you know the truth? There is no statement which reveals the truth. If the truth is universal, statement also must be universal. If truth is eternal, statement also must be eternal. Only thing is you have to discover it. You have to discover the statement which reveals the truth which is eternal. Okay, therefore in this sense, Apaurusheya, Shankaracharya is only to point out, is only helping you to understand the Shruti. Shruti is being a pramana which points out the truth. Shankara is only helping the disciples to get the Shruti's vision. He says, you get it is painful for my throat. Okay. My throat gives a trouble, I take that so that I can speak. So statement of a truth is not anybody's statement, because it is a statement of the truth by the truth. Okay, the statement is of the truth and it reveals itself. Therefore we say statement stands on its own as the truth stands, so its revelation stands. You can only discover it. Anybody can discover. The Shruti helps you to find the right frame of mind. In that frame of mind, the truth flashes on its own. Okay. So whoever gets that state of mind, that frame of mind, it flashes in him. Whoever gets into that state of mind, it flashes in your mind. That's all. Therefore, it is an Apaurusheya Vakya. So it just points out. So nachayamasti purovastitaha. So he told Purupakshi, purovastita, that a thing should be in front in order to be mistaken. No. Thing should be evident, that's all. It need not be evident to senses alone or to the mind alone. It is self-evident, that's enough for the adhyasa to be present in your life. Now next, pratyak swabhavatvat, because Atma by its nature is inner. Inner means inwardly existing. Inward in the sense, inner means what? Without using any instrument. Inner means Swatah Siddha. See, we shouldn't take these words for granted. Don't go by the worldly meaning available in the language, in the common parlance. Go by the Vedantic meaning. Pratyak Swabhava means it doesn't need sense organs, it doesn't need mind, it doesn't need anything. It just is because it is. That's all. Pratyak Swabhavatvat. Pratyaksha Siddhe Vadi Vipratipatya Sambhavacha. And another argument he says, if we were talking about an object perceived, perceptible object, sense perceptible, then there would not have been argument. We could just, because what is visible to eyes, anybody can see. Drishyate hi vadinam vyapratipatti evam atma naiva atma iti. If Atma was a matter of sense perception, it would be easy for any common man to see. Like a book, like a pen. Just to see the book, anybody can see. And there would not be any dispute. There would not be any dispute means different opinions, varying opinions. There would not have been any varying opinions if the thing is so simple and straightly understood through sense organs by anybody. But Atma is not available to sense organs. Yet you have a misunderstanding. Therefore he says, Drishyate hi vadinam vyapratipatti revamatma naivamatma. Regarding Atma, there are many varying and differing views. Somebody says Atma is like that. Another says Atma is like this. Regarding the Atma, how people have varying contradictory views. This shows Atma is evident, but not evident to your sense organs. Because what is a matter of sense perception would not lead to so many contradictions, so much of dispute. Shankaracharya's argument, if Atma is available commonly like any other object, nobody would dispute. Because it is a sense perception, it's easily seen. Tasman nayamatma purovastitaha. Atma is not available to sense organs. If it's sense organs, everybody would see. Apurovastitasya cha katham adhyasa adhishtanatvam na sambhavati iti. Apuro avasthitasya cha katham. So There is no rule that it should be only sense perceived. What is not sense perceived also is found to be under mistake, found to be mistaken. How he says, nachayamasti niyamaha purovasthite eva vishaye vishayantara madhyasitavyamiti. You can't make a rule that only sense perceived alone can be mistaken, because vishaye vishayantara madhyasitavyamiti niyamaha pratyuktah eva adhastat. Slightly argument different. Earlier he told one object is mistaken for another object, and here he says it should be right in front of you. Purovasthita eva adhyasitavyamiti taduna uchyate nachayamasti niyama kasmat apratyakshyepi akashe balasthalamalinatadi adhyasyanti. Without being sense perceived also it can be mistaken. See, Shankaracharya okay. Shankaracharya says, apratyakshyepi akashe. Akasha, the space is not sense perceived. Isn't it interesting? Space is not perceived through sense organs. It is a matter of direct experience. Balas talamalinatadi adhyasyanti. You look into the sky. You mistake the sky or the space to be a round shaped vessel, okay, with a light depression here, like an inverted saucer. Not flat one, but a slightly depression, with a slight depression, a round shamiana. We call it round shamiana, the blue shamiana. But this blue shamiana, round inverted vessel, inverted pan, round inverted pan with a slight depression like this. It's not just a flat like this, a slight depression like this. Isn't see in the center, sky looks like that. So therefore, akashe balaha tala malanatadi adhyasyanti. Tala, malina. Malina means the surface looks dirtied. Dirty means colored. The surface looks colored in blue. The blueness is dirty. I am literally translating and trying to explain. Tala, malina. Tala is surface. Malina, dirtied. Dirty means looks dirty, looks ugly. So, dirty means stained. What is the stain? Blue color is the stain. Therefore, akasha pratyakshaha. Akasha is not pratyaksha. Space is not sense perceived. Isn't it interesting? Shabdadharatvena anumeyatva abhavat. Okay. Now it can't be understood through anumana also. Tasya akashasya apratyakshatvena. Akasha is a non-pratyaksha, non-perceived. Yet pratibadi sammatasyapi adhishtanatvam drishtam adhyase. Therefore, what is not sense perceived also is found to be mistaken like the space. Isn't it? Similarly, tasmin hibala avivekino adhyasyanti talam malinadi. Okay. Tadevam prasiddham atma prasiddhi matram apekshate adhyasaha napuna purovastutvam pramana siddhatvam va. Therefore, what adhyasa requires is it should be evident and not necessarily sense perceived or pramana siddha. It needs to be neither pramana siddha nor indriya siddha. But somehow it should be evident in our anubhava. Upalakshaname tat adhyastasya pratitehe swarupato nivrittimapi na niyatam apekshate iti drashtavyam. The adhyasa appearing and adhyasa correction also. Both are at the same level. Nastye talamalinadyakashaha evayamiti badhaschayamapi talamalinyadhyabhasanuvritteriti. Okay. Yana upasamhara. So far he argued, now he just gives a conclusion, just 2 or 3 sentences. Today we will finish it. Even next day we'll go into another chapter. Now we'll finish this chapter today. Evam aviruddhaha pratyagatmanyanaatma adhyasaha. This is the conclusion. Therefore, it's not impossible. The presence of adhyasa in pratyagatma is found. It's not untenable because we find it in our anubhava. Iti prakruta akshepa samadhana granthopasamharaha. He concludes, the reply to Purvapakshi is concluded with this statement. Tadevam Swato avishayasyapi pratyagatmanaha. Atma, which is, although is not an object, yet katanchit asmat pratyaya vishayatva sambhavat, yet it becomes an object. So what is not an object appears as a object of a thought, that is adhyasa. Aham pratyaya vishayatvam is adhyasa. Atma by its nature is not available to any thought, but under mistake you think through a thought. Atma itself is not available to any thought, it is beyond thought, yet under mistake you take it to be a object of a thought, object of I thought. I. This word, this expression, this idea is referring to Atma, but this idea referring to Atma itself is adhyasa, because Atma is beyond any idea. Katanchit asmat pratyaya vishayatva sambhavat vishayatva bhavepi aparokshatvadeva swayam siddhatva. Therefore, the Atma, even if it is not an object, still it is swayam prasiddha. When it is swayam prasiddha, adhyasa could be possible. Knowledge also possible. Both are possible. Adhishtanasya aropyasya va vishayatvasya pure avastitatvasya va niyamena anape. Same thing is repeating. It's not necessarily a rule that it must be sense perceived. That's what he means. Na sambhavitaha pratichyapi atmanatmano adhyasaha ityartaha atra anatmanaha. In fact, I'll tell you, two answers Siddhanti has given Shankaracharya. Purvapakshi insisted that Atma must be an object of you thought and object of a thought. He gave the two answers. First answer, assuming that adhyasa requires that it should be a object of thought. First, accepting tentatively Purvapakshi's argument, he gave an answer that Atma becomes an object during adhyasa and for sake of adhyasa. Second, he says it need not be object. If it is evident, that is enough. Adhyasa is found. Adhyasa is found and correction also is found. Misunderstanding and correction both need the thing to be evident. So therefore it is there. Apratyaksha, even if it is not sense perceived, adhyasa is possible. That's all. But here I tell you, even this is an assumed argument alone. Adhyasa is there, that's all. We are not trying to prove through argument. Even this is, the second answer is also abhyupagama. Accepting alone we talk of it. But the straight answer is, Atma is, adhyasa is anubhava siddha. We don't need to prove it with any argument. Adhyasa is a simple anubhava siddha. Na sambhavitaha prachityatmanyapi anatmano adhyasaha iti atra anatmanaha iti taddharmanam adhyasa iti sangrahitaha veditavyaha upalakshanam chaitat. Same thing repeating. So Atma, Anatma, Adhyasa. Atma means Pratyagatma. Anatma means everything other than Atma. Your mind, thought, all this is Adhyasa alone. That means anything other than Atma is Adhyasa, then all that is only the Adhyastamana Atma. Atma itself is appearing as these. Anatmani, Atma taddharmanam adhyaso aviruddha. Therefore, adhyasa of Atma into Anatma and Anatma into Atma is quite natural. It is quite possible. It is tenable, and that's why you find it. Sambhavanartham aviruddhaha ityanenedam suchitam sambhavanarthamevedam akshepa pariharanam asmadhih kritam natayam akshepo yuktaha drishtatva loke adhyasa purvakasya vyavaharasya. Abba, ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿ ಪಿಂಚಸ್ ದ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಎಕ್ಸಲೆಂಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ನೀವು 2 ಆರ್ಗ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ಗಳು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ, ನಾನು 2 ರಿಪ್ಲೈ ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ. ಅಲ್ಟಿಮೇಟ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೀಡ್ ಎನಿ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್. ಅಧ್ಯಾಸ ಇಸ್ ದೇರ್, ದಟ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್, ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್. ದೇರ್ ಫಾರ್ ದೃಷ್ಟತ್ವಾದೇವ ನ ತ್ವಯಮಾಕ್ಷೇಪೋ ಯುಕ್ತಃ. ಸಂಭಾವನಾ, it is just an argument to show the possibility, but possibility is only an argument, so the real proof is your experience alone. You find yourself to be in adhyasa, that is the only proof, that is the only thing. You don't need anything more than that. So natu ayam akshepo yuktah drishtatvat loke adhya. People try to Mula Vidyavadins made Mula Vidya as a topic to be discussed through argument. In fact, Avidya and Vidya both do not need to be argued. This is Vedanta. Vedanta doesn't need argument because it doesn't establish anything on speculative logic. It only simply points out, that's all. Simply points out the universal existence. And you just come to discover it. As you try to understand the Shruti statement, you just see it. So therefore, Sambhavana Yukti is only just for sake of Yukti, it is not true. So Sambhavanartameva vidam akshepa pariharo asmabhik kritam. Natu ayam akshepo yuktaha. In fact, the very objection of the Purva Paksha is wrong, it is unnecessary, it is only unnecessary argument. Drishtatvat loke adhyasa purvakasya vyavaharasya. This is the real answer. The ultimate final answer, which is not an abhyupagamavada, which is not assuming somebody's condition. Without assuming any condition, directly if Vedanta has to say adhyasa is there because it is there, that's all. You don't have to argument, you don't have to argue. You find it in anubhava, and that's what we say. Therefore, drishtatvat loke adhyasa purvakasya vyavaharasya nacha drishte anupapannam nama. This is the Shankaracharya statement. Swamiji giving it. There is no need to, there is no question of impossibility. There is no question of untellability regarding what is already found in your anubhava. What is already found in anubhava, no need to argue whether it is possible, impossible. Say possibility, impossibility is meaningless. You find it already in your life. That's what it is. Therefore, adhyasa, ultimately last sentence I say, adhyasa is anubhava siddha, not proven through any other argument. Don't put any condition. This is not like this, this is not like this. How can there be adhyasa? How can there be Allah? It is there right now. Therefore, adhyasa is a matter of anubhava. All other arguments are unnecessary. Okay. This topic, third topic is finished. We go to the fourth. Vidya Viveka Bhashyam. What is Vidya? What is Avidya? I just read Bhashya statement. And then next class we see the Bhashya meaning and then Sugama also. Tametam evam lakshanam adhyasam pandita avidyeti manyante. This adhyasa, this avidya in the form of this adhyasa. See? Avidya, evam lakshanam adhyasam. This adhyasa of this nature, which you have described, which we have pointed out in your life, this adhyasa of this nature, this adhyasa of this nature is called avidya. Avidya is not something else. Avidya is simply misunderstanding. Some people say, like Mula Vidyavadins, avidya is something beyond all these things. So once you make it beyond anubhava, then you have to accept it on the strength of paroksha. Somebody's belief, you become blind believer. Therefore, panditaha, the Vedanta panditaha call. So this definition is prasiddha among the panditas. What is that? Evam lakshanam adhyasam avidya. This adhyasa of this type in your anubhava, that is avidya. Tad vivekechana vastaswarupavadharanam. What is vidya? By distinguishing it, by doing viveka, that anatma is anatma, atma is atma, and everything else is anatma kalpita. Okay. Tatra evam sati. This being the case, yatra yadadhyasaha tat krutena doshena gunena va anumatrena pisana sambadhyate. So where there is an adhyasa, the real truth is not affected by the adhyasa by any amount. Neither the defect nor a quality. Neither defect nor quality can touch Atma. Atma remains ever untouched. Therefore, no adhyasa really sticks to Atma. Then adhyasa drishtya alone we talk of adhyasa. That's all. Assuming adhyasa, we talk of it. Once the assumption is dropped, then there is nobody to talk, nobody to listen. Whole thing is one truth. Same thing he says here. Remaining will continue. So this bhashya portion, the explanation on this bhashya portion will follow in the next class. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om Tat Sat. So regarding avidya vidya, this is a very tricky point, and there are some more points are some more light is thrown on these things. We'll discuss in the next class. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.